Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at Our New Social Life by Natalie KERR and Jaime KURTZ. Our listener wrote in because they're looking to reboot their social life, and they were curious if this book's worth their time.
Yeah, well, you know what? This book really stood out to me because it's not your typical self-help book that promises a quick fix.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually a collaboration between two, social psychologists who actually, bring in real scientific research to the table.
Mm.
And they've spent years studying social connection, and they offer some really evidence-based strategies to improve your relationships in our modern world.
You know, when I was reading the introduction, I really resonated with what they were saying. Like, they were
Mhm.
talking about how people feel exhausted or they feel anxious in social situations, and
Mhm.
how so many people are struggling to find their people. And it just felt like they were speaking directly to so many of us today who are experiencing these same challenges. Like, I was wondering, do you ever feel that way?
Absolutely. I think we all experience those feelings from time to time. And I think
Yeah.
one of the things that the book really drives home is that social connection isn't just some optional luxury. Like, it's an essential human need, just like food and shelter. And it was fascinating how they even, connect that need to our very DNA.
Yeah, like our brains are literally wired for connection.
Right.
Yet modern life seems to be making it harder than ever.
Exactly.
The book digs into that tension,
Yeah.
and I thought it was interesting how they call out some of the surprising norms that might be quietly shaping our behavior.
Right.
It was really eye-opening.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me was how these norms often operate on a subconscious level.
Hmm.
So, they talk about how, for example, living alone and moving frequently, which are much more common today than in the past,
Right.
can contribute to feelings of isolation. And then you layer on things like, the pressure to be busy and the constant presence of technology. And it's no wonder that so many people are struggling to connect these days.
Yeah, it's like we're living in this paradox.
Right.
We're more connected than ever through technology,
Yeah.
yet we're feeling increasingly disconnected on a human level.
Exactly. And I think that, sometimes it's not just those external factors, but our own minds can create barriers to connection without us even realizing it.
Oh.
And that's where this idea of social cognition comes in.
Wait, hold on. What exactly is social cognition? It sounds a little technical.
Yeah, essentially, it's how our brains process and interpret social information.
Okay.
And the book explains how, our brains can sometimes distort our social reality,
Hmm.
leading to misinterpretations and missed opportunities for connection.
Interesting.
You can almost think of it like looking at the world through a slightly warped lens.
Okay.
Sometimes we see things that aren't really there,
Yeah.
or we miss things that are right in front of us.
That warped lens analogy is a really great way to put it. Did they give any specific examples of how that plays out in real life?
Oh, definitely. They talk about things like, the spotlight effect, where we tend to think that everybody is judging us.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're on stage with a spotlight shining directly on us.
Yeah.
And in reality, most people are way too caught up in their own thoughts and anxieties to even notice our little slip-ups.
Oh my gosh, I do that all the time.
Don't worry, you're not alone.
Yeah.
I think we all fall prey to the spotlight effect sometimes, but the book explains, why that happens
Okay.
and what we can do to challenge those negative thought patterns.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Actual strategies to help us navigate these really tricky social situations. That's why I'm so intrigued by this book.
Yeah, and the strategies that they offer aren't complicated or overwhelming.
Oh, good.
They're actually surprisingly simple and actionable.
Okay, spill the tea. Give me an example.
All right, so one of the things they highlight is the power of small interactions. And it turns out that even brief conversations with strangers can have a significant impact on our mood and sense of belonging.
Really? Like just chatting with the barista at the coffee shop
Exactly.
or saying hello to someone on the street.
Exactly. They talk about this fascinating study
Right.
where researchers in Chicago and London asked people on trains to either, chat with a stranger
Hmm.
or just sit in solitude. And consistently, people underestimated how much they would enjoy those conversations with strangers.
So you're telling me that simply talking to people, even if we don't know them, can actually make us happier?
That's what the research suggests, and the book kind of delves into why these seemingly insignificant interactions can be so powerful.
I'm hooked. This is really making me rethink my whole approach to socializing. What if the key to a more connected life isn't about grand gestures
Right.
or forcing ourselves to be extroverts,
Right.
but simply being open to those small, everyday moments of connection?
That's exactly the kind of shift in perspective I think the book encourages.
I'm already feeling inspired to put some of these ideas into practice.
Yeah, and that's just scratching the surface.
Oh.
The book is packed with even more fascinating insights and actionable strategies.
Okay, before we dive into those,
Mm.
I think we should take a pause here.
Yeah.
Let's let our listener digest this first batch of, like, brain-bending ideas
Good idea.
before we hit them with even more.
We'll be back in a moment to explore more of our new social life.
Right.
Okay, so, we've been talking about the challenges of connection in modern life, and it's clear that there are a lot of factors at play. But what I found really compelling about our new social life is that it doesn't just leave us with this sense of doom and gloom.
Right.
Like, it actually offers a path forward,
Yeah.
a set of practical strategies for building more meaningful connections.
Yes. I'm so curious to hear about these strategies. The first part of the book had my mind spinning, but now I'm ready to, like, get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually improve my social life.
Well, one of the things that the authors emphasize is that, we don't have to make drastic changes overnight.
Yeah.
Small, consistent actions can make a big difference over time.
Okay.
For example, they talk about the power of simply smiling more often.
Smiling. Really? It seems almost too simple.
I know, right? But they explain that smiling signals warmth and approachability. And it can actually trigger a positive response in the people around us.
So it's not just about feeling good ourselves, but it's about creating a more inviting atmosphere for connection.
Exactly.
That makes sense. What other simple strategies do they suggest?
Another one that stood out to me was the importance of expressing genuine gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how a simple thank you can strengthen bonds and create a sense of shared positivity.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know, when someone expresses sincere gratitude to me, it makes me feel so appreciated and connected to that person.
Exactly. And the book actually dives into the science behind why gratitude is so powerful, both for the giver and the receiver. It's fascinating stuff.
This is giving me so many ideas. I'm already thinking about small changes I can make in my daily interactions.
Yeah.
What about those deeper connections, though, the ones that go beyond casual acquaintances?
Yeah,
Does the book offer advice on how to cultivate those?
absolutely. The authors actually delve into the importance of self-disclosure and vulnerability in building intimacy. And, they argue that by letting our guard down and sharing more of ourselves, we create space for deeper, more authentic connections to form.
That makes sense. But being vulnerable can feel so risky.
Right.
What if people judge us or reject us?
I hear you. The book acknowledges those fears and even talks about something called the beautiful mess effect.
The beautiful mess effect. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Essentially, it's this tendency to see vulnerability as a strength in others, but a weakness in ourselves.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. I admire people who are open and authentic, but then I hold back from doing the same because I'm afraid of what people will think.
I think we all do that to some extent. But the book encourages us to challenge those fears and recognize that vulnerability is actually a powerful tool for connection.
Okay.
When we're willing to share our imperfections, it gives others permission to do the same.
Right.
And that can lead to a sense of shared humanity and understanding.
Okay. I'm starting to see how vulnerability can actually be a strength. But how do we actually put that into practice?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly comfortable spilling my deepest secrets to everyone I meet.
Right. The book offers some practical tips for having those deeper conversations. They talk about the importance of, finding the right setting
Okay.
and creating a safe space for open communication. They also mention these fast friends questions,
Okay.
which are specifically designed to accelerate intimacy by prompting people to share personal information.
Fast friends questions. That sounds intriguing and maybe a little scary. How does that work?
It might seem counterintuitive, but research shows that asking the right questions can actually help us break down those initial barriers and get to the heart of what matters more quickly. It's about skipping the small talk and diving into those deeper, more meaningful conversations.
I love that. It's like a shortcut to connection.
Yeah.
Are there any other surprising strategies they suggest for building closer relationships?
One that I found particularly interesting was the idea of incorporating novelty and excitement into our relationships.
Novelty and excitement. Like what? Going on a roller coaster with our best friend.
Well, that could be one way to do it,
Right.
but they talk about how even small changes to routine can make a big difference. Like they share this funny anecdote about a study
Right.
where couples were asked to crawl around a laboratory together with their legs strapped together.
Wait, seriously? They had couples crawl around a lab with their legs tied together? What on earth for...
That sounds bizarre, I know.
Oh,
But the researchers found that engaging in novel and exciting activities, even silly ones like that,
yeah.
can actually boost relationship satisfaction and create a sense of shared adventure.
So it's about breaking out of our comfort zones and trying new things together, even if it feels a little awkward at first.
Exactly.
I like it. What else does the book cover in terms of relationships?
So they also delve into the importance of being responsive to our loved ones,
Okay.
both in good times and bad. And they highlight this concept called perceived partner responsiveness,
Okay.
which is basically the feeling of being truly seen and understood by the other person.
That makes sense. Knowing that someone truly gets us and cares about our thoughts and feelings is essential for a strong connection.
Absolutely. And they offer specific examples of how to cultivate that sense of responsiveness, like celebrating our loved ones' successes, offering support during challenging times. They even talk about this idea of invisible support,
Okay.
which is about finding subtle ways to help without drawing attention to the problem or making the person feel like a burden.
Invisible support is such a great concept. It's about being there for someone in a way that feels genuine and supportive without making them feel self-conscious. I'm definitely going to keep that in mind.
I think it's one of the most valuable takeaways from the book.
Yep.
And it ties in nicely with another surprising idea. They present connection on demand.
Connection on demand. That sounds almost too good to be true.
I know, right? But they make a compelling case for how we can cultivate that sense of connection even when we're physically alone.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. How is that even possible?
They talk about practices like meditation, gratitude journaling, and spending time in nature.
Okay.
And they explain how these practices can help us connect more deeply with ourselves, which can then radiate outward and enhance our sense of connection to others and the world around us.
So it's like we're building our capacity for connection from the inside out.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so empowering to think that we can create those feelings of connection even when we're by ourselves. This book is full of surprises. What else can we expect in the final part?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already, but there are still some key insights and practical tips we haven't touched on yet. The authors offer a realistic perspective on the time and effort it takes to build strong relationships. And they encourage readers to find what works best for them.
Yeah.
Whether it's smiling more often, trying out meditation, spending time in nature, or any of the other practices we've discussed.
It's like we have even more juicy stuff to unpack.
We do.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick pause to give you a moment to process all these amazing insights. We'll be right back with the final part of our deep dive into our new social life.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into our new social life. We've covered so much ground already, from those barriers to connection in modern life to some of those, surprisingly simple strategies for building more meaningful relationships.
It really has been a fascinating conversation. This book really challenges our assumptions about how we connect with others. It's made me rethink, my own social habits and priorities.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with all these amazing insights and tips, I want to zoom out and think about our listener for a second. They wrote in because they're looking for ways to improve their social life. And they want to know if this book is actually worth their time. What do you think?
Based on everything we've discussed, I would say it's a resounding yes. KERR and Kurtz do a phenomenal job of blending scientific research with practical advice.
Yeah.
It's not just theory, it's about giving you actionable tools to create real change.
Yeah, and they do it in such an approachable and engaging way. It doesn't feel like a dry textbook.
Right.
It feels like you're having a conversation with two really smart and compassionate friends who genuinely want to help you connect better.
Exactly.
Or right there with you, cheering you on.
Yeah, one thing that really struck me was how realistic the book is. They acknowledge that building meaningful relationships takes time and effort.
Yeah.
And they don't offer, any quick fixes or magic solutions.
Right, like that point about Jeffrey Hall's research,
Right.
It takes 40 to 60 hours
Right.
to go from just an acquaintance to casual friend status.
Right.
And over 200 hours to become good friends. That's a serious time commitment.
It is, but I think it's also reassuring.
Yep.
It gives us permission to be patient with the process and not get discouraged if we don't see instant results.
Yeah, I agree. So often we put so much pressure on ourselves to have this huge social circle or to instantly click with everyone we meet.
Right.
But this book really reminds us that genuine connection takes time to cultivate.
And it's a process that's unique to each individual.
Right.
You know, the authors acknowledge that everyone's journey is different, and they offer a variety of strategies to address, different needs and circumstances.
Yeah, that's one of the things I appreciate most about this book. It's not this like one-size-fits-all approach. They encourage readers to find what works best for them.
Yeah.
Whether it's, smiling more often, trying out meditation, spending time in nature, or any of those other practices that we've talked about.
It's about being curious, experimenting, and finding the approaches that resonate most deeply with you and your, unique personality.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a little something to ponder.
Yes, a final provocative thought. What one small change could you make today to create a greater sense of connection in your life?
Maybe it's, reaching out to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or, making eye contact and smiling at a stranger, or maybe taking 5 minutes to practice gratitude. Whatever it is, take that first step and see where it leads you. And to discover even more actionable tips that are tailored to your specific needs, we highly recommend checking out our new Social Life by Natalie KERR and Jaime KURTZ.
It's a book that has the potential to transform not just your social life, but your overall well-being.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and happy connecting.